Hi folks, Rod Moore here with you again from Moore Art School. Today we're going to do a great little painting, bit of Australian sort of scene, set out in the country with some distant hills and a nice little fence in the foreground there. Colours I'm going to use today are ultramarine blue. I've got a violet out of the tube, but you could easily mix that with ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Bit of alizarin crimson, some cadmium red, got some cadmium yellow which we'll use in our foliage to brighten it up a little bit. Some yellow ochre and burnt sienna, which are good earth colours, especially if you're doing Australian sort of scenes, and some titanium white. And what I'm painting on today is a 16 by 20 piece of canvas, which I've taped to the board there, off a canvas roll. And I haven't prepared it with magic white or anything like that. I'm just going to go straight into our ultramarine blue and mix in some titanium white into that. Okay, you just got to touch the brush into a little bit of the paint thinner there. Mix that up, so it's just ultramarine blue, titanium white as you can see there. And let's just start work on our sky here. And I haven't put any magic white or anything on the canvas at all. Just thought we'd do it a little bit different today. Show you that maybe you don't need it necessarily. Quite the way we've been told we do. Now I'll come down here. Now we're going to keep this paint reasonably thin, because we're going to put our mountains and trees and things in here as well. Notice I'm just lightening it off as it gets towards the horizon there. That's really important. Just working in with those X strokes, make sure we get all the canvas covered there. And I'm going to come down 2/3 of the way down. Okay. About there I think. And again, you want to make sure you get plenty of white into the lower part of the sky. So I'm just going to go and pick up some more white there and we'll work that in. Now it is important that you work this in quite well. So I'll go over it there like that, and haven't blended any of the top in yet, but what I'm going to do is take some paint out of this big brush here. So just get some paper towel and just pull it through the paper towel. You don't need to stick it in the thinner bucket at this stage, unless you've got one of those whacker things that Bob Ross and Bill Alexander would use. Okay, so now we're just going to go back in with our X strokes here just to blend it in. Nice blue sky for a warm sort of sunny day in the Australian outback. And you can see the transition down to the horizon there. Okay, just wipe that brush out a little bit more, because what I'm trying to do is get the paint nice and blended in, but also a little bit on the thin side. We don't want it to be too much paint up there, because it makes it harder when you put the next, coming layers of paint up there, up onto the canvas. So the thinner you've got this paint up in the sky, the better, definitely. So I've just used horizontal strokes there across just to blend it all in. Wipe that brush out a little bit more and we'll just work it in a little bit more. Okay, so that's starting to look better there now. I always step back and have a good look at where we're up to, and I can see a few spots where I just need to just soften in there. Okay, stepping back and having another look. And pretty happy with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'll put some trees up in here, put our mountain in through there. We'll do a couple of different mountains, whoops, and we'll put an old gate here with a bit of a fence post and a path leading into the gate there. So our next step then is going to be putting in those mountains. So I'll do a couple of layers of the mountains. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of layers of the mountains. The most distant layer is going to be a very light value. Okay, and as mountains get off into the distance, they tend to lighten off. So we'll put in one like so. Now, not really showing out against our sky. Our sky could have probably been lighter at that point. So I could go just a touch darker with this, just so that it does stand out. Don't worry about this side too much, because that's where our tree is going to be. And we'll just work that in there like so. Now, the further away mountains are, the more they tend to flatten out. And as they come closer, the more you'll see details in the top line of those mountains. Okay, just keep that in mind. So I won't go and do any more because I'm going to put another one coming in through here in a moment. But what I will do is just get a little bit of a lighter value just around the base of them there. Like so. Okay, now as I come forward, the mountain's going to get a little bit darker in value. So I'm going to go into that violet colour that I've got, add a bit of ultramarine blue into it. So I don't want it to be too violet. Get a bit of titanium white in there, and let's just try this now and see how that goes against. Yeah, that's good. See, pushes that first mountain further back, and because we're coming closer, you're going to get more red into the mountains here. Okay. Try and make some interesting shapes. That's a little bit too uniform. See, I've got 1 bump, 2 bumps, 3 bumps. So that's no good. We'll just flatten that part out there. Get that in through there. Okay, so what we want is to have one that's higher than the other two in a different sort of shape, but probably not the middle one. I don't know that that's going to be the right one to make higher. I think maybe we'll make this one here. We want it a bit higher, and we'll just give it an unusual bit of a shape there, like so. Okay, run that through into there. Maybe go a little bit higher up in there. That's a bit better. So it's got a bit of a breakup of the shapes there now, which is important so that we don't have it all looking too uniform there. Okay, now I do think we just need to get a little slightly stronger value. I'll go into a bit more pure purple, and let's just get a slightly stronger value happening along the ridge there to separate that back one. Okay. And make them stand out in the sky a bit more there. Okay. Now I'll add some gum trees onto this this mountain here, which will give us the effect of light and shade. Okay. Right, now I'm not entirely happy with the overall shape of those mountains, but we'll go with them for the moment, and we can reshape them, you know, as we get going. If we're still not happy, I'll just soften out some of that paint through there. You don't want this paint to be too thick because this is the under painting that we're doing here. Maybe make that another different little shape there. That's what I love about painting, is you can basically just shape your world the way you want it to be. If you want to move a mountain, pick it up, move it, love it. It's fantastic. Okay, now to get some gum trees on here, we're going to get some highlight colours on there. We're going to use a little round brush, and I'm going to go and mix up the sort of colour you'd expect on a gum tree, which is almost like a khaki green colour. We don't want it to be too bright, so I'm mixing ultramarine blue and a bit of yellow ochre, okay, which gives us a dark sort of, you know, eucalyptusy green. I'll add a touch of titanium white in with that because we don't want it to be too strong. This mountain's still off, you know, off in the distance. Okay, and I'm just tapping the end of the brush into the palette to get the paint on the end there. Make sure we've got plenty of paint because we've got quite a bit of mountain there. I've probably done more mountain there than what I'd originally planned. Okay, now let's just test that. I'll pull some of that paint out because it's got a bit high up on there. We don't want it to get all the way up on the hairs there. Just want to tap the end of it in. So we've got the paint in there like so. Okay. And then along here, along the top here, we'll just start to put this little shapes of gum trees. happening in there. Okay, and we'll put this all over the area that I've just worked on. Oh, this mountain, I mean. We'll put this all over this mountain, and then we'll knock back the bits where we want to have some shadow. Leave a little bit of the purple underpainting showing through, like so. And bring them down in lines, you know, the shape of the actual mountain. So across the top of the mountain there, and then I'll come down the side of the mountain like so. Okay, starting to get a good covering of them here up on top of this ridgeline here. You want to get them nice and crisp up on the top of the ridgeline there. Down into the valley there. Okay, now you'll see where this is going in a moment once we get all this in. It's a pretty warm day today, so I need to work fast. My paints are very loose compared to how they might normally be, so that makes for an interesting process. Notice I just mixed up some more paint there because I'd run out, and just mixed it into a slightly different colour as I come further back. I want to have my light coming from this side here going across, so I just mixed it into a slightly darker value there, just for a bit of variety. Okay. And we'll get some into the bottom corner there. Probably put a little bit of a tree there. Okay, so that covers that all over. Now we don't obviously want to have the effect of sunlight coming and hitting the entire mountain range here, which of course it wouldn't do. Pardon me. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick out, it's going to be hitting along this ridge along here, the plains. It's going to be hitting up the side of that mountain, up into this part in here, but maybe down in this section here, it won't be as strong. You know, be catching up on the top there, but we're going to have an area in here where it's going to go into more of a shadow. Okay, and so by tapping out that paint and tapping it back into the purple, or the underpainting, we start to develop the shadow area as well. Okay, and you can always pick up just a little bit more paint to get it a bit darker in there, and then just tap that in. So you're really flattening out that paint. Like so. And then you're going to have light coming in through here, so then we're going to have dark, tapping it back, get that paint off there, going with a bit of a dry brush now just to tap out that area. Okay. And in through here, it's going to be dark at the back there, shadows, so we'll tap that out. And we'll leave a bit more light up the top there. Okay. Now I feel like we need just a little bit more light hitting at the top there. So I'm going to go in with some yellow ochre, a touch of cadmium yellow to brighten it up, and some titanium white. Okay, and this is just going to go in the real highlight areas that we want. Okay, so it's quite a bit brighter than what we put on before. I'm just going to go and work along the tops here, where the sun would absolutely be catching. So all along that top of that ridge there's going to be sunlight there, right? Up into here, it's going to be catching up in there. And through there it's going to be catching. So we're just utilizing sort of, a couple of different values in here now. It's always important to do. You don't just want to have two values, a dark and a light. You want to have a mid-tone value as well, which is what we put on first. Then we created some darks by mashing it back into the underpainting, and now we're picking up those lights, okay, where the sun will be creating that nice glow through there, down into that valley there, like so, probably in there. Okay, and you can see this starting to come to life a little bit now. It's definitely going to be along the top of there. Quite a bit of paint in that spot, so hasn't taken the paint that easily. Okay. So you just got to play around with this until you get it to the sort of shape that you'd want those mountains to be, with the dark and the light. You can see that interplay is starting to happen there now. It's a little bit bright in a few spots in here. Okay, we might have a bit of a field happening through here. I'll just flatten that out where maybe the trees have been cleared. So a bit more paint. Maybe there's been some logging in through there, and that field is just catching some sunlight there. One of our first real warm days of this summer, and my little studio is just a touch warm today. Okay, let's get that sunlight happening up into there. A couple of ridges of it through there. Okay, that's good. So I've gone a little bit brighter there because it's going to give you more direct light, whereas if down here it'll be blocked a little bit by that mountain. So you just got to understand where's your light hitting. Maybe it's hitting in a few spots through here that's standing out a bit. But you've got to really understand where does the light hit and where does it not hit. And I think, the one thing that I could have done better with this is to darken up these parts, the parts where it's in shadow. Now I've got quite a bit of paint on there, so it's not going to work as well as I'd like. Now, I probably could have gone for a darker value in that, when I originally put that mountain base on there. So it's a good lesson, get a nice dark in there to put these highlight colours over to make them stand out more. You don't want to do what I'm doing now, which is backfilling into them. That's not our most desired way of going about things. But it's a good lesson for you to learn and to watch what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm getting some darks back in there. I'll just clean off the brush. So I've got a nice dry brush there now, and I'll just soften the darks back in. You don't want those darks to be too prominent. Just subtle is all we want. Okay, that's starting to look good now. I do like what's happening over here. Get a little bit more dark into that side as well. Okay. Now, just go for a slightly darker value just along the back of that one there, where those trees might be. And through there. So we're getting some bit of nice variety in there now, which is good. Maybe catch a little bit of sun up in that section there.